my desk that day, and God clearly changed my mind about how I view problems. And I realized I can't look at a problem the same way ever again. You know, that's what's kept me all these years. I haven't been perfect. But what's kept me 28 years of being a Christian is no matter what chapters come into my life, I always know God has a purpose behind all this. Whether other people got me here, whether I myself got myself here, God has a purpose for where I am. Right now in my daily devotion, I'm actually going to do a whole series and preach it in my church. I'm reading a book called The Red Sea Rules. It's a powerful book. And in other words, the children of Israel were trapped by the Red Sea, trapped by Pharaoh's army. The wilderness is everywhere. They had nowhere to go. And what's interesting is that it was actually God's will for them to be right there. It's like, how can that be God's will? How can it be God's will for me to be trapped between the Red Sea and trapped between death? How could that be the will of God? Have you ever been to that place where you had trouble on your right side, trouble on your left side, trouble in front of you, trouble behind you, trouble on top, trouble beneath? Trouble was everywhere. Have you ever been to the place where you sat at the bottom of a black hole with no hope and you can't see the light of day? God will take that and turn it around and work things for your good if you trust him. One of my favorite stories is a story about a king who loved going hunting. He had this fascination with hunting. He had never done it before, but so he had a friend of his that he had encouraged to come with him. The only problem is that his friend had a very irritating problem. You probably heard the story. Very irritating habit, rather. And he would always say, "This is good." Everybody say, "This is good." Just say it. He would always say, "This is good." If you show him something brand new, "Oh, this is good." If you show him something that's broken, "Oh, this is good." He would always say, "This is good." And so it became a point of irritation for this king, because it's like, man, how come you always say everything is good? You always say this is good. You know, this is so, you need to stop this. But he would always say it. So he said to his friend, "Hey, let's go hunting." He said, "Yeah, this is good. This is a good idea. Let's go." So they go out hunting. They have their guns, rifles. The king doesn't know how to use the gun because he's never used the gun before, and he makes a mistake, fires somehow, and blows his thumb off. Boom, his thumb is gone. Blood is everywhere. The king has excruciating pain. His thumb is on the ground. Ants are already begin to cover it. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible thing. And when his friend looked over and saw the condition and the state of the king, he said, "Hey, this is good." And the king was so mad with his friend. He says, "What do you mean this is good? I'm in pain. I've lost my thumb. I am bleeding to death. And you're saying this is good?" And out of rage, the king has his best friend locked up in the palace prison. A whole year goes by. The king's thumb heals. Well, his thumb didn't heal because his thumb is gone, but the stump is now there. He's got 4 fingers. He learns how to use a gun, and he goes hunting on his own. So he's out there in the wild, in the jungles. He's hunting. Till all of a sudden he stumbles upon a tribe of cannibals. They captured him. They tied him up, and they carried him back to their camp, where all the cannibal women and children were all waiting, because they were going to have a barbecue. They're excited. And so the moment he turns up, they turn up with him. Everyone's excited. I mean, these guys, they're having the time of their lives. So they take the firewood and they stack up all this firewood and they put the king tied up on top, and they're all dancing around. And then all of a sudden, before they put the fire, one of the cannibals spoke to another. Then they took him, then they untied him, and they said for him to go, and they sent him away. And when they sent him away, they did it, listen to me here, they did it because they have a superstitious belief and they don't eat anything that isn't whole. You have 9 fingers. It will curse us if we eat you. So they untied the king and they released him, and the king immediately, his mind races back to the palace prison and remembered the words of his friend when his friend said, "This is good." So he runs right to the palace prison. He unlocks the door and begins to apologize to his friend. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Please." And his friend looked at him and said, "This is good." And the king was like, "Just stop it for once. What do you mean this is good?" He said, "King, this is good. Because had you not locked me up, I would have been with you, and I have 10 fingers. Oh, yeah." In other words, no matter what is happening in your life, you need to be able to look up to the heavens and say, "This is good." You might not understand why it's happening, but understand that God has the master plan, and God knows the end from the beginning. God knows the whys behind your trouble. He knows why he permitted that thing to happen. He knows why that trauma came. He knows why that person died. He knows why this thing messed up. God knows why, and the Bible says he'll make all things work together for good.